The race for the ANC's top job is gaining momentum ahead of December's National Elective Conference. NEC member Lindiwe Sisulu putting her name in the hat, saying she's confident the ANC Women's League will endorse her for the presidency. Well, she joins us now in studio to discuss that and other issues. Evening.
Good evening.
Minister Sisulu, pleasure to have you in studio tonight.
Thank you for inviting me.
Firstly, let's talk about the position that you're vying for. In your own words.
In my own words, I'm doing what I did 5 years ago. Because I believe that we need to get back to what the ANC had intended to do in leading the country and its peoples, especially the black people, to a better place than the one they were in, freeing them from all forms of bondage. And I'd like to be part of that.
In what way?
In leading this country to that particular place where the ANC had intended we should be at. When we conceptualize of what the ANC stands for, the basic document is a Freedom Charter. And I'd like to be able to be at a place where the ANC can tick off the boxes and say, we've done this, we've done that, and we've done that.
You've served in cabinet for about 2 decades now.
Yep,
so when you talk about being a leader, I'm going to push you a little bit to be more specific. Is it the role of presidency that you believe will be where you can make the ultimate difference? Because you have been a leader.
Yes, but it's not the first time I'm standing as president either.
Yes.
So that question would be very difficult to answer. I have stood as a candidate for the presidency in the last election, and at the last minute I withdrew to join Comrade Cyril, who at the last minute withdrew to be with somebody else. But when I decided that I wanted to throw my hat in as president of the country, it's because I had gone through various decades and feeling that we could do better and feeling that we could take a different direction from the one that we were taking. When we got into government, we were tied by a certain conditionality that we had adopted at CODESA, that we would have a government of national unity. And it worked didn't work for 2 years. Thereafter, we had the ANC running government, and that was the opportunity that the ANC had to put its own specific programs to ensure that we can live up to what we promised our people, especially promised our people when we wrote the Freedom Charter, promised our people when we asked them to vote for the ANC. And the positions that you're talking about are leadership in specific departments or deputy leadership in specific departments. And I think that it is now time that some of us who've been in the ANC for a long time can take a shot at saying we can take it forward, because I believe we can.
So for you, is it a zero-sum game, that presidency or nothing?
Pretty much.
Talk to me about what happened in 2017. You said you withdrew to run to effectively go with President Cyril Ramaphosa.
No, I didn't say that.
Okay.
Correction. No, I ran my own campaign.
Yes.
And I called it Alice 17.
Yes.
And in the final stages of that, current President Cyril called me to his house to ask if I could join him as a deputy to himself.
Okay.
And when we looked at the figures, it made sense. And I said, yes, very much so, I will. However, the following day, he seemed to have had a blackout. He had completely forgotten that we had agreed to that.
Was this before or after you had withdrawn?
What do you mean after?
Your own campaign, because you said you were running your own campaign.
I was running my own campaign.
And based on this agreement, you then withdrew.
I then withdrew. Yes. I withdrew and became Cyril's deputy as far as our campaign was concerned. But the following day, when we got to the conference, he had completely forgotten that we'd had any conversation. And it became clear to me that perhaps overnight he had found a different partner. And that's what he ran with. And fortunately for him, it did make the threshold, and he made it to the top, and he is now president of the country. And I am I'm standing again.
What do you mean he had forgotten?
Because there was no follow-up, was there? Otherwise, I would have indicated that I withdrew, or we both agreed. No, it wasn't like that.
How did it make you feel?
It made me feel is this a man's world? That's how it made me feel. It's a man's world.
You felt betrayed. You didn't see it coming, effectively.
No, I didn't see it coming. But that's not the issue now. I mean, I'm long past that. I was just giving you a bit of history.
Well, the context is important, right? Because it helps us understand the kind of relationship that you would probably then also have with the president, and some of the comments that you've made recently about your own position, should he retain the presidency. So subsequent to that, you have this moment where you've effectively been blindsided, and yet he appoints you to his cabinet and you say yes. Explain that.
No, I would explain it as, part of political games that people play. He hedged his bets, and he discovered that maybe it might be better if he went along with somebody else. He'd have a better chance that way. And he did have a better chance because he was competing against Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, and he had a clear lead at the end. So perhaps he'd counted the numbers and found that it didn't add up, so he needed somebody else. But that's not the issue. I'm here. I'm not here to complain about anything.
Why did you agree to be part of his cabinet now and serve as a minister now, when you're saying that if he is re-elected, you actually don't know? And when one reads the tone of what you're saying, is to suggest that you won't be willing to serve as a minister under him.
No, I think I've served my time as a minister. I've served for a very long time. I've had a very productive time. I've enjoyed every position I've been in. I've enjoyed the challenge that has been thrown at me. And for each department I've been at, without sounding pompous, I've got to the top of it, and I've made the difference I wanted to make with each one of them. I've left each department feeling like I couldn't have done better. I really did my best. I threw in my best and took the department to a different level, a higher level. So serving does not only mean being a president or a deputy president. And when I didn't make that, it didn't mean I was going to, chicken out of my own commitment. It is my political party. I was born into this party. There's nowhere else to go to. And therefore, that space I was given to serve, I did serve with all my heart.
So here's what I'm really trying to understand. The picture that has been created around why you will not serve in the interviews that you've done, some of the reporting of the interviews that you've done as well.
Okay, let me correct that.
Yes.
I was asked if I would serve in Cyril Ramaphosa's cabinet, and I said no.
Yes.
Yes. They didn't ask me if I would serve in Kathy Motlahlane's cabinet. The answer might have been yes.
Yes, but so the point that I'm going to here is that it seems to be very much about the person who would be in charge, which is President Cyril Ramaphosa, and that your decision to step away would very much be about him.
It is about a much needed change that we need to put in and make sure that we can speedily get to the promises that we made to our people.
Who is going to bring that change, you believe?
Oh, well, we can work our way through anybody who stands and offers us a different solution. I hope that, there are just so many other people who would be able to stand and say that they would be able to lead the country. And I think the country does need change. It is important that we understand that there are other cadres in the organization. They have different ways of doing things, and that's the nature of politics.
So anybody but Cyril Ramaphosa?
No, I think you're putting me in a very... that's not the way that I had put it. I was asked if I would serve in President Ramaphosa's cabinet, and I said no, and that's where I'd like to leave
No,
it.
but we're building on that conversation, Minister, and that's why I'm being intentional about the questions that I'm asking you, because I'm really trying to fully understand where your frame of mind is, what your thinking is, including about your own future when it comes to leading within the ANC or in the country. So that's why I'm asking you specifically. Is it a case of I've done my bit, I won't be serving, regardless of who is in charge? Or if it's anybody but Cyril Ramaphosa, I may be open to that idea.
I think the question was asked when I was indicating that I am putting myself forward as a candidate again, right? And that is what my focus is right now, to ensure that I can put myself forward as a credible candidate and make sure that I can take up the campaign that I had in 2017, learn from the mistakes that I might have made, and go forward to put myself up there. Now, if you are going to be saying to me, having indicated to you that I'm standing as a president, would you agree to serve as a minister again? What are you saying about what I'm telling you? What you're saying is, well, you know, we don't stand a chance, but would you consider? You are undermining the message that I am sending.
No, not necessarily. I'm simply, there are many streams of the conversation that we're still going to have. This is one aspect of it, and based on something that you've answered before in other media, to be fair.
Yes, and the point that I was making is right now, I wanted to indicate that I am standing as a president of the ANC, and if I succeed, that is what I'm going to be doing.
What makes this time around different, do you think?
What makes any time different from the other? Because I've learned a lot. I've run a campaign before. I've learned from my mistakes. I've learned too how times have changed, and I've adjusted to the change in times. And I think that it is time that we have a different perspective on how to lead. And when I say that it is time for women to lead, there's always a background noise about, from men that, what does it mean? But I must emphasize, it is time for women to lead, because I believe in women, and I believe women make much better leaders, plain and simple.
There are three other women or two other women whose names have consistently come up.
Have they come up themselves, or consistently you've heard about them?
Oh, no, I've spoken to Minister Mamuluko Kubai about this, and she said
about presidency.
No, not about presidency.
Oh, I see. Okay,
I'm talking about different leadership positions. Sorry. Yes. The other names that have come up, hers is one of them. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma is another one of them. And all of you are talking about the need to give women an opportunity to lead, or the time for women to be leading. Are you having that conversation amongst yourself as three candidates who are vying essentially for the top two positions?
I don't know. I think we should have a distinction here. When you're standing as a candidate for presidency, you run a campaign. There is no campaign run from deputy presidency position. So the people you're talking about essentially are myself and Nkosazana. Yeah. Yes, we have had discussions with Nkosazana. But they've been just about how women are dealt with, and how women have a raw deal in society, and how women have a raw deal in politics as well. And we've been in politics all our lives. I'd like to leave the stage having shown the way for women behind me, to say it is possible. And I want them to follow that path, to say it is possible for women to lead. Because I believe in women. I believe in women because we have been led by women. The UDF, we've been led by women also in areas of the ANC. And their leadership is uncontestable.
Are there any conversations about leading together?
I think you're now turning on to the way forward. Right now, we're talking about the campaign that I am leading. All right, yes. We haven't had discussions with Nkosazana. She is still to declare her candidacy. She hasn't, not unless I've missed that. And we will see how it goes. Normally, coming together comes after each party has measured, or each section has measured how far they've gone, and then they work out, perhaps we could, try a partnership with somebody or other.
All right. So effectively you're saying it's a conversation that you'll have later down the line, should you need to.
Should we need to, yes. But for me, it's time for women.
All right.
Yep.
We're going
and
to...
for you, it is time for?
Nice try. It's always been time for women, but not in the context of where you might be dragging me into.
No, it is time for women in every sphere. We can no longer just be subordinated to men. What for?
Minister Lindiwe Sisulu will continue the conversation in a moment. We'll take a quick break. All right, so the race for the ANC's top job continues to gain momentum ahead of December's National Elective Conference. Tonight we're in conversation with NEC member Lindiwe Sisulu. She's put her name in the hat yet again, vying for the position of presidency of the ANC. So I want us to focus then on this aspect of presidency. My assumption is that, the hope is that you would become ANC president and ultimately, hopefully, president of the country should the ANC be re-elected.
Yes. Now, to put all of this in context, it is the branches that take the decision.
Yes.
And the branches will then approach the particular candidate to say, we would like you to stand as president. Thereafter, if the candidate agrees, stands as president, if that particular candidate succeeds, they automatically become the president of the country.
Yes. There's a conversation I want us to have just around potentially what then your views on the 2024 national elections might be.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, we know that every president of this country has to take an oath of office.
Yes.
And part of what that oath of office says, it commits one to observing, obeying, and upholding the country's constitution.
Yes.
It's a constitution that you've expressed views about previously, a constitution that you don't seem to hold in very high regard.
Right. I think this is where you got it wrong. The constitution is a constitution that we take an oath on. It does not mean that it is not going to evolve. It does not mean that it is not going to be amended to take into account conditions as they arise. I did not talk about the Constitution as being, anything that I would look down upon. But I do know, like you do know, we had to negotiate around the Constitution. This is a negotiated settlement. We make amendments to the Constitution as and when the need arises. And I'm looking forward to a time when we can make serious amendments to the Constitution to make sure that we all feel represented. We need to Africanize the Constitution, just like we need to Africanize the law, so that we are all at one in the interpretation of some of the things that we put in the Constitution. The Constitution that we have now, was a constitution that was a compromise between the parties that were in CODESA, and we have then gone on to adopt it as it is now. We've amended it 26 times. That doesn't mean when you amend it that you have no confidence in it. But what you're saying is we can make it suit the purpose of a particular time. We can make sure that it improves the lives of our people.
You characterize some of the socioeconomic problems that we have as a country as stemming largely from the Constitution.
No. I characterize our failure to deliver at the level that we should, because we do have a Constitution whose interpretation is not necessarily that which we would have wanted to attach to it. We would like to make sure that our Constitution is very clear on the rights of people. We would like to make sure that we are all at one about what the Constitution means, and make sure that even in the interpretation of our courts, we are at one with that.
So are you saying that it's not so much that it is the Constitution that you find problematic, but rather that
the interpretation, I made it very clear.
Which means it's the lawmakers, the judges, the magistrates.
It's the judges, the magistrates, maybe even ourselves as members of Parliament who make the laws. Because the test of anything is in the practice of that particular whatever it is that you put together. We've had to change our laws because we have discovered as time goes on that it is not fitting, it is not fit for purpose, and we change it. The Constitution is not an unbending instrument, an unbending surface. It is one that allows us to amend it as we get to a point where we feel it does not fit the needs of a particular situation. We've changed the Constitution 26 times. Right now, we're looking at changing the Constitution to change that section of the Constitution that deals with land. And we will continue to change the Constitution until we are quite satisfied that it responds to the needs of our people on a timeless basis, as opposed to a particular time in our history.
So give me three, then, perhaps, aspects of the Constitution that you believe need to be amended rather, or need to be Africanized, as you describe it.
Well, all those 26 were amendments we're trying to make sure that we can Africanize. The one that I am talking to, that I would respond to immediately now, is about land. It's taken us a long time to change that clause in the Constitution that deals with land.
Interesting, because when you speak to the likes of the former Deputy Chief Justice, December Moseneke, he says actually the Constitution has long allowed for government to expropriate land without compensation. That, however, aspect of the Constitution has not been fully tested, including by office bearers like yourselves.
Okay. Judge Moseneke might be talking about an overview as he sees it. I'm a practitioner. I've been a minister. I've been a minister of human settlements. We have a place here called Cosmos City. Before we could put a brick on the land that we wanted to buy, we were 10 years in the Constitutional Court. It took us 10 years trying to buy that land. Mm-hmm. Tell me how many houses we would have built in 10 years. I was building houses on the N2 gateway in Cape Town. It took me 4 years in court, in the Constitutional Court, to get permission to move the people from where they were to another place so that I can prepare the ground to build on it. I'm a practitioner. I'm talking about what I have experienced. Mm-hmm. I have not experienced what Judge Moseneke is talking about. I found it very difficult to buy land. I found it very difficult to find suitable land because on the periphery of the city, yes, far away from the city, black people you can build houses for. But you get closer to the city, you will see just how difficult it is. And maybe Judge Moseneke was talking about a global picture of what the Constitution says. I'm talking about the interpretation of the Constitution. It has made it very difficult for me as a Minister of Human Settlements to get land that is suitably located close to cities where people can go and work and build houses for our people.
When we talk about delivery, there is, of course, a question that arises, and it's about the extent to which, not negating the challenges that you have highlighted, that there are realities, right, where there have been failures by government, even to deliver where it could, including even just the issue of housing. Oh. When you left, of course, when you left the Department of Human Settlements, you left the department with a backlog of houses that were not built. There were commitments to have a central database when it came to the RDP houses in the country. That has still not happened.
No, that's not true. I don't know where you get your information from. We have a statistician general.
I was speaking just the other day with officials of the Human Settlements Department and asked about a central database, and they said it doesn't exist.
There's a statistician general who provides us with statistics on everything. In fact, that is possibly one of our strongest points in government. He provides us with information on how many houses have been built. He provides us with information about what constitutes a household, how many people are in a household. you can flip through that and get the information. There is a central database for housing, which is made up of all the provinces, because there is no way you can even allocate money to a province without understanding just what is their target, what is it that they want to achieve. The Statistician General provides us with how many houses we have, how many people we have. It makes it possible for us to project into the future how many houses we need. And the purpose of the National Department is to make sure that there is policy, to make sure that there is resources that are given to the provinces. Otherwise, provinces themselves have responsibility to provide the information against which they are going to deliver the houses. And that does exist. If the Department of Human Settlements hasn't found it, then perhaps they didn't read the handover report properly.
The reality is that if you say that it exists, then it leaves questions around those people, some of which have been waiting since the dawn of democracy for houses,
yes,
and still don't have them today.
Yes.
And yet their names were part of the first on those lists.
That is true. But that has to do with, I think we're really straying away from the point. That has to do with how government is structured. What happens is the responsibility of building houses is that of the provincial departments and the municipalities. We give money as the National Department. We determine the policy, we do the oversight, and we provide the resources. And that is how, from time to time, we can take over a project and make it a national project, and we declare that to be a national project. Otherwise, the responsibility of actually building the houses lies with the various responsibilities that we give to the municipalities, to the provinces themselves. In a municipality that has a grade 2, for instance, you give the responsibility to build houses. Ultimately, I am responsible for making sure that they are built on the correct to the correct standard that is allowed, and that is why we have entities that check the quality of houses that are built. Sometimes they succeed, sometimes they don't succeed. But national government does not actually build houses on its own. When it does build houses, it declares that this is a national project, and it has to be in agreement with the various levels of government, which is provincial and local, like we did with the N2 Gateway project, like we did with the Cosmos City, like we've done with many others. We have one in Durban as well. So we have a joint responsibility, and that is how we come in. Otherwise, our job is policy making, our job is quality assurance, our job is making sure that we can account to our people about what government is doing in relation to providing houses. But that is a decentralized responsibility to the extent that the municipalities themselves would like to build houses themselves.
We're running out of time. I want to come back to that issue of the judiciary. And, you know, fundamentally...
Did we come to talk about the judiciary here, or did we come to talk about...
Well, we're talking about what South Africa looks like,
yes,
potentially under a President Lindiwe Sisulu presidency.
Will look like. It is not yet under my...
Yes. But these are issues that are important because... like I said, when you take potentially the oath of office to be the president of this country, there is a commitment to the Constitution. And it is important that we understand your views, not just around the Constitution, but even around lawmakers.
Yes, you know, the Constitution, the Constitution is a living document. It is a living document. What we have now is not what we had earlier on. And it provides room for improvement, right? And when I find that perhaps it doesn't respond to me at a particular time, it does not mean that the Constitution is not that which we take an oath on. So I don't want you to take the message from what it is that I was talking about and make it into something that is not the intention of...
And judges?
Well, yes, I did talk about judges. And I think that I would like a situation where judges would understand how their judgments affect us as I indicated to you, I waited for 10 years to build houses for the Cosmos City enclave. I waited 4 years to continue with my work in housing in Cape Town. I would like us, all of us, to find a way in which the Constitution has resonance, even in the way that we understand it, even in the way that we interpret it.
We understand that you had apologized for having made reference effectively to judges as having been mentally colonized, describing them as...
Did I make an apology?
That's what I'm asking you.
No.
You didn't apologize?
No, I did not say that judges are mentally colonized. I use an American phrase.
No, Minister, you did.
No. I used an American phrase, which, in fact, is like, I'm trying to remember the actual phrase itself.
The House Negroes.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
That's of course.
You likened their interpretation of the laws to being individuals, to being reflections of individuals who were mentally colonized and had a mentality of American House Negroes. I
think when you put it all in one sentence, you get the kind of interpretation that you're giving.
No, but that's what you said in your article, Minister.
What I said in my article was, I would like the judges interpret the Constitution in favor of ourselves, the least advantaged. I would like the judges to get out of a mode which I believe is very much like that which James Baldwin will talk about as a house nigger. A house nigger is that black person who, bows to an American or an European interpretation. I want them to interpret it for us, black people. I want them to interpret it in our favor. It is the interpretation of the Constitution that I was talking about. I want our judges, all of them, to have in mind the poorest of the poor. I want them to have in mind what it is that would benefit
the same judges that have issued judgments in this country against the government of this country when it comes to the delivery of services, that have forced several departments, water, education, the others, to do what they said they were going to do. Are those the judges that you are saying are not acting in the interests of the poor?
No. I am saying that I would like them to interpret the Constitution in favor of black people in particular. And I was talking from my own experience. I waited. I don't want to repeat
Minister,
this.
I take your experience, but your experience is not. It's not the only experience.
It isn't the only experience.
So I'm talking now.
But I'm talking about my experience. I wrote the article, so let me explain to you what I meant, right? Because I have explained it. The president calls me, and he says to me, you know, I'd like you to withdraw some of these items here. And I say, which items? Because I actually read this article over and over when I saw that there was a furor about it. And that's not, by the way, what I came here for. That I put behind me. And he says, this phrase, and that phrase which he points out, is a typically American phrase which talks about house nigger. That is a phrase. House nigger is given in terms of colloquial black history to those people who are wanting to please a particular sector of society, in which case in the United States it's American whites. And that is an idiom that is used very widely in the American context. And that is what I was talking about. When the president said, but you know, house nigger is very negative. And I said, I don't think so. I don't think so. I have borrowed an American phrase and used it in the context that I think it is most fitting. I would like our judges at all times to interpret the Constitution in favor
So then you still stand by those comments?
Yes, I do.
This is despite seeing the reaction that it caused from the judiciary, including the response by the then Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo?
No, he was actually, I think you are misinterpreting it. When the SCA was interviewing judges, I think it was Member of Parliament Julius Malema said, but what did you find wrong in that article? And he said it is about the spit. It wasn't about the interpretation of black and white. It was about the spit. And that is a direct borrowing of a phrase that is very regularly used in a particular context in America. It had nothing to do, he was not saying I was offended because of this and the other that is a reference to me. He was asked in public by Julius. Julius said, but I've read Minister Sisulu's text. What is it that you find so offensive? And what he chose was that spit. He says, oh, I find it disgusting. It is a phrase. It is a phrase that is used about blacks in America who would bend over backwards to even do the worst possible.
Let me wrap it up here with you very briefly. Why do you think you are the best suited candidate for the position of ANC
I did not
presidency?
say I'm the best suited. I am standing in the same way as I stood in 2017 because I have been approached by a number of constituencies asking me to stand. And I think I have a responsibility to say yes or no to those constituencies, those branches that have asked me to stand. It's possibly the same branches that asked me to stand in 2017. Because I believe that in a woman, we have a better chance. And it is anyway time that women did take up the place and take up their place and run the country.
So you don't believe that you're the best candidate for the job right now?
Now, I think you deliberately misheard. I am presenting myself because I have been asked by the branches to do so. And I am presenting myself. I'm not presenting anybody else. So why would I not? Why would I be saying, no, I'm second best? I haven't said that. I'm explaining to you that I didn't just wake up one day and decide I want to be a president of the country. I've done it before. You do it traditionally when people have come to you and asked you, will you take it?
So if they hadn't asked you, wouldn't be doing it?
No, I mean, where would I get the mandate? To be a president, to stand as a president, you need to have a mandate from people who believe that you could take the country forward. Otherwise, you don't just wake up one morning and decide you're going to be the president of the country. It doesn't happen in our country. It doesn't happen in our communities.
Lindiwe Sisulu, let me thank you so much for coming into studio, being part of this conversation.